Okay, we're going to continue with session 2. Our main question here is, what are positive and negative numbers? If you would like to kind of try it and then come back and see the answer, that would be fine. Otherwise, you can kind of just follow along with me on this one. All right, it says, try these two problems about positive and negative numbers. All whole numbers and their opposites are called integers. So this, if you have a highlighter or you just want to underline that, integers is going to be a key word here. So that's all the positive numbers, including their opposites. A says, identify the value of each integer, A, B, C, and D on the number line. So if we're starting at 0, this would be 1. Let me get my there. This would be 1, 2, 3. I can write that here. 4, 5, 6, 7. And then going backwards, or counting in the opposite direction from 0, 1, 2, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5, negative 6, negative 7, negative 8, negative 9. So to answer this question, we would identify A is equal to negative 9, B is equal to negative 3, C is equal to 3, and D is equal to 7. The next question says, which of the integers A, B, C, and D are opposite numbers? So if you're looking at the values of these, which ones are opposite? So the opposite integers are B and C, and then explain. Why are B and C opposites? Because 3 and negative 3 are 3 units from 0 in opposite directions. C, which of the integers A, B, C, and D are less than 0? And explain how you know. So the less than 0, what they're trying to point out here is that knowing that numbers are less than 0 if they're to the left of 0 on what we call a horizontal number line. So we would say A and B, are less than 0 because they are to the left of 0. Okay, if you need a pause to catch up with the writing, go ahead and do so. I'm going to move on to number 2. Like whole numbers, fractions also have opposites. Fractions that are quotients of whole numbers are called rational numbers. Opposites of these fractions are also rational numbers. So fractions of quotients of whole numbers really is fancy way to say fraction. Okay, so rational numbers are fractions, that they're also any number that can be turned into a fraction. So often when we talk about rational numbers, we're really thinking of an actual fraction like 1/4. However, 5 can be turned into a fraction by putting it over 1, or 25 over 5 is also equal to 5. So remember, quotient means division, and that fraction line is also a way to symbolize division. You're dividing it up into so many parts. Okay, so we've got that new vocabulary word, rational numbers, or otherwise think of them as fractions. A says plot points at negative 3/2 and its opposite on the number line. How do you know where to locate the points? So step 1, we're going to label the number line, and you have to look we've got 0 and 1, and it's cut in half, so I'm sure you're noticing that that's counting by halves, right? 1/2, this is really 2 halves is equal to 1. So we could write this as 3 halves. We could also write this as 1 and 1/2. 2 can also be written as 4 halves. And when we're counting on the opposite side of 0, it's the same, just with a negative sign. -1/2, -1, -1 and 1/2, or -3 halves, -2. Okay, I could also write that as -2/2 and -4/2. So plot the points at -3/2 and its opposite on the number line. How do you know where to locate the points? So -3 halves is going to be here. And if I wouldn't have labeled it on the other side, I could still find it. It's like 1, 2, 3 units away from 0. So we would count 1, 2, 3 units away from 0 on the other side. Okay, when you're putting dots on your number line, make sure they're actually touching the number line. Okay, because you'll lose points for that if you don't do that. One possible answer you could say is -3 halves is located between -1 and -2. So its opposite, which is +3/2, would be between +1 and +2. Okay, so if you need to stop and write that down, go for it. B. Lupita wants to place points at 75 hundredths and its opposite on the number line in problem 2A. Explain how Lupita can place each point. So decimals are also rational numbers. So you have to think of 0.75, maybe? Okay. My pen's not working. Okay. 0.75 can also be represented as a fraction. That is 75 hundredths, right? And I can simplify that to be 3/4, which would be its simplest form. I'm sorry, this pen is not working for some reason. Let's try a different color. Okay, and so where would 3/4 be located? You'd have to know that 3/4 or 0.75. I'm sorry, I don't know why this isn't working very well. Is between 1/2 and 1. So its opposite, and I'm just going to name it -0.75, is between -1/2 and -1. Okay, so over on to the side, why are whole numbers also rational numbers? That's because any whole number can be turned into a fraction. And rational numbers are basically a fancy name for fractions or decimals, because decimals can be turned into fractions as well. All right, let's keep going. So on this one, I would try 3 and 4, then come back, and then try number 5 and come back. Okay. So hopefully you're pausing it and then you're trying it, and now you're back. Use a rational number to label each point on the number line. Okay, so then you got to see, what are we counting by? So we've got 1, or not 1, goodness, 0, and your 1 up here. So in between is going to have to be half. Okay, so then I might label that 1/2. In between 1 and 2 would be 1 and 1/2. And then a -1/2. 1.5, -2. Technically, I should have probably written those all on one side of the line, but it's fine. All right, so we have to label these. So I have to know that between 1/2 and 1 would be 3/4. Okay, between 1.5 and 2 would be 1 3/4. Down here, that's already -1/2 labeled. Between -1 and -1/2, though, is going to be -1 1/4. And then we already labeled the -2 there. So, all right. So basically, we really need to know our fractions in order to do this. So what is the opposite of each number you wrote on the number line? So with my first one, what's the opposite of 1 3/4? -1 3/4. The opposite of 3/4, -3/4. The opposite of -1/2 would be a +1/2. The opposite of -1.5 would be a +1.5. And the opposite of -2 would be +2. Okay. Also trying to think flexibly and remember that 1/2 is also the same as 0.5, or 3/4 would be the same as 0.75, a negative. Okay, so try to think flexibly there. Plot points at -1 and 7/500. And then again, remembering that 1 7/500 is the same as -1 3/4. And +1 3/4 is between 1.5 and 2. So -1 3/4 would be between -1 and, -1.5 and 2. I hope I did not confuse you. Sorry about that. So we're going to put it here to be -1 3/4, or -0.1 and 7/500. Lastly, plot the point at -3/4. So again, we already labeled 3/4 as a positive here. It's between 1 and 1/2. So you would look between -1/2 and -1 to plot -3/4. Okay. Hopefully I didn't confuse you on that, because I know I misspoke. Number 4, what is the opposite of 1.5? It's going to be -1.5. What is the opposite of 1/2? Explain. Oh my gosh, I didn't read that. What is the opposite of the opposite? So the opposite is like that, right? But then the opposite of that is 1.5. So what we want to notice here is the opposite of the opposite is the original number. Okay, and it's also written sometimes like this, because the negative sign is opposite. So it's the opposite of 1.5 or 1.5. Okay. All right. Last one. How is locating -2.5 on a horizontal number line similar to locating it on a vertical number line? And how is it different? Okay, so on both number lines, -2.5. Okay, that is really not writing for me. Sorry. Okay, -2.5 is between, like in the middle of -2 and -3. And the difference is going to be on a horizontal number line, it's going to be to the left of 0. And on a vertical number line, it's below 0. Okay. Sorry, that's really sloppy. Last one. Is the opposite of 1 1/4 less than 0 or greater than 0? Explain how you know. Show both numbers on the number line in your response. So since 1 1/4 is positive, the opposite will be negative. So it's going to have to be less than 0. And then I'm going to use a horizontal number line to show that. Oh, actually, that's not what okay, I'll just do it like that. Sorry. 1, 2, and then I'll put a 1.5 here. Okay, then -1, -2. This would be -1/2, -1.5. So where would this one be? It would be in between 1.5, right in the middle. Okay, that's 1 1/4. The opposite's going to be in between 1 and -1/2. Right here, that would be -1 1/4. Okay, I hope I didn't confuse you. It's kind of late, and I will try not to record these late at night, so then I can think a little better. The next thing I want you to do, I do want you to tear this page out and do it as if you would like homework, and have me check it to see how you're understanding things.